do you think tanking is hurting the NBA right now, too? And what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago, how much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Well, I ended up adding this since our show started here, Rohit, but his points prop tonight at 20.5 is the same number from the Iowa State game. That's a bit of a mistake, right? When we consider the gap in opponents here. I think Peterson specifically steps up. He needs to. I think he kind of owes this team a great performance.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
I know that Florida lost at home to Auburn, and it's a real thing that happened. So you can't strike it from the record. But if you did, I think Florida's looked like the best team in college basketball for about 2 months. And I think there are a bunch of results that suggest that.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome into NewsWire. It's our Friday edition of the show as we get ready to wrap up the month of February. March Madness right around the corner. Opening day, World Baseball Classic. So much to cover here on the show as well. We got it all for you here on the program. Josh Inglis will join us from Covers, the latest in the National Hockey League as they get into the final 20 or 25 games of the season. And we head to the playoffs as well. Sam McQuillan with us from Legal Sports Report, and also Jeff Levering from the Milwaukee Brewers television and radio network. We'll get the latest on the Brewers as well. We have it all covered for you. So make sure you stick with us the full 90 minutes on our show today on this Friday. And we begin with the state of Massachusetts and some new requirements. Of course, legislation changing as fast as we can keep up with in sports betting. And the Massachusetts Gaming Commission has now approved a new requirement that says that sportsbooks must notify sports bettors who are limited and provide an explanation as to why. This will start in June. A user must be notified within 48 hours of being limited by a sportsbook. Naturally, this has just happened in the past. You don't know why you can't bet as much as you did. Were you winning too much? Was it something with your credit card? State of Massachusetts is going to let you know. Also, the transfer portal could be changing as we know it right now. Talk about an emerging landscape. The NCAA Football Oversight Committee has recommended legislation to protect the transfer portal window by issuing penalties for schools and coaches who circumvent the rules. The committee proposed penalizing schools and players who did not make their interest in transferring during the January transfer portal window public, and there could be penalties for the head coach, and that also includes team meetings, circumventing those as well, and losing 20% of the budget. If that happens and you try and circumvent the rules with this transfer portal, naturally they don't want kids who are transferring all 12 months out of the year. Creating a little window to be able to do it seems to be the secret sauce. All right, Paramount is set to purchase Warner Brothers. This is coming to an end, and they're going to get TNT Sports and find themselves combined with CBS Sports, combining a wide-ranging sports portfolio that includes the National Football League, college football playoff games, and the entirety of March Madness. If you're unfamiliar with Paramount, what they own, it's CBS Sports. So certainly this is now going to go through, and now Netflix apparently is out. The NBA's MVP still favored on the FanDuel Sportsbook, probably going to get a little more juice. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been cleared to return to the NBA. They said it would happen this week. It could happen this weekend. He missed the last 9 games due to abdominal strain. He's not on the injury report. And what a showdown tonight against the Denver Nuggets. We'll have a preview of that game coming up for you a little bit later in the show. All right, in college hoops last night, Michigan State beats Purdue. Exciting affair, 76-74. Jeremy Fears had 12 points, but hit some big ones down the stretch. Purdue was 7.5-point favorites, so if you took the points or even took the money line, you came out on top. Izzo season is coming. March is almost here, and here he is after the game on the win.
And of course, Jeremy, played really well. I mean, it was a matchup of 2 point guards. Braden Smith, there's a reason he's the Player of the Year candidate, and I thought we did a decent job on him, but he's a hell of a player. And they got a hell of a team. It was just our night. They made threes. We weathered the storm of all those threes. To do that on the road in Mackey Arena, I think was, I'll give my team some credit on that.
Of every area. I thought the difference in this game was, we only turned the ball over 9 times. They were better than us, and they turned over 6. But they turned those 9 turnovers into 19 points. That was a big piece of the game. And not to say that they couldn't score them in the half court, but you got to, you'd rather have them earn them that way than us turning the basketball over and then them, getting 19 points on 9 turnovers. That's huge. That's huge. Like if they go get a 2 every single time, that's 18 points. I mean, that's off the chart numbers right there. So
in the NBA last night, the Phoenix Suns defeated the LA Lakers 113-110. LA was 5.5-point favorites. Reason why? Devin Booker out, Dylan Brooks out. Suns still win. Royce O'Neal hit the game winner. It was a 3 with less than a second to go. Lakers had a chance to tie. They could not. Luka had 41 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists. But those stats don't mean anything when you lose. Just ask J.J. Redick.
I thought, in the second half we did a good job of getting the right guys onto the basketball and then running offense. Got some good stuff, out of ATOs, despite the fact that we botched 3 straight to start the game in the first half. I think that lineup that we played tonight, which I don't know if it was our first time playing it, but it was something we talked about pregame, was letting Luka and AR play longer together, letting LeBron play on his own for a little bit. And, there was, 7 minutes of that Jake, Luke, AR, Luka, Jackson lineup. And that was a good lineup for us tonight. And then end game, you can't get a better look than that. So, we executed. The guys did a great job executing. Looked clean coming out of his hand. I thought it was in.
76ers beat the hapless Heat last night. Hapless. Couldn't barely field the team. 8 guys, 9 guys. Heat's having trouble. A lot of injuries there. Philly wins 124-117. They were 2.5-point favorites. Tyrese Maxey, congrats to him. They broke Allen Iverson's 76ers record for most 3-pointers made in franchise history. By the way, Joel Embiid played in this game. Looked healthy. 26 points, 11 rebounds. Let's hear from Nick Nurse after the game on the big game for Maxey, who also had 28 points.
Yeah, I thought we played really good for about 42 minutes. I think there was about a 6 or 8 minute stretch in there that was not so good. Other than that, I thought we played really, really pretty good. But really, really proud that, we just kind of last 2.5, 3 minutes defensively, we just had to guard better and kind of stop switching so much. And we got through some screens and really rebounded the ball too at the end. So, yeah. A little bit of a roller coaster game, but I think that's kind of who we are a little bit.
They ran us out of the gym in the first half, and then, if they missed, they, had those second chance, 14-second chance, opportunities. Then, it settled in. The effort changed the momentum of the game. We got back into it, took a lead, and then it became possession game. From there, and. They made some plays, down the stretch where we couldn't.
The ageless wonder Kevin Durant comes up huge last night for the Houston Rockets. He had 40 as Houston beats Orlando 113-108. He becomes the 6th player in NBA history to surpass 32,000 points. Here is Durant on that after the game and the win over the Magic.
How does it feel?
I appreciate it. It feels incredible. I always love being mentioned with the greats of all time.
They set a standard that I try to reach every day. Like I told you before, I'm just grateful for everybody that invested in my career, me as a person. And I'm representing them every time I step out on the floor, so this is major to me.
I thought we beat ourselves. I thought that we had a few turnovers, lapses on the defensive end. They were able to gain some momentum. I thought we had them in a good spot, up 19 or so, and they go on like a 8 or 9-0 run, heading into a timeout. Got a free throw coming out of the timeout, and they are who they are for a reason. They got two of the best half-court players in the NBA, and we gave them life. Good teams. We're better than that, and we gotta bury them when we got the chance to.
One more final from the NBA before we talk some NHL. The Timberwolves beat the Clippers 94-88. Anthony Edwards, 31 points in the game. Clippers did not have Kawhi Leonard in that matchup. Also, the Dallas Cowboys are placing the franchise tag on wide receiver George Pickens, so the odds of him being traded this spring or summer would seem to be thin. Pickens likely to stay with the Dallas Cowboys next season, maybe on that one-year franchise deal. All right, coming up next, Josh Inglis joins us. The NHL is back on the ice after the Olympic break. We'll get the very latest when we come back after these quick messages. You're watching NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Don't go away.
Michigan at a 57% chance right now, followed by Arizona, Duke, and Houston. Here's the interesting caveat, Joe, for Michigan, who's the favorite right now. On February the 8th at 5 a.m., they were trading at 40%. Today, 57%. People like themselves some Michigan here.
Well, Donnie, exactly, because Michigan, it just vaulted themselves to number one in the AP poll.
Prediction Markets Edge. Only on SportsGrid.
How much do you think tanking is hurting the NBA right now, too? And what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago, how much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio. Only on SportsGrid.
I have my own account. I don't need to have any. He didn't say any of that. So I'm of the belief that if someone accuses you of something and you don't deny it, there's a reason you didn't deny it. Because you kind of feel like they got me. And yes, I'm not going to tell you I did it, but I did it. Yeah. Don't you think so?
The Craig Carden Show. Only on SportsGrid.
Yeah, and with the Clippers, Craig, it feels like Kawhi is on an island. We saw him ball out in the All-Star game the other day. Kawhi was very impressive, and he's had a fantastic season. I think when you look at the Clippers, if the Clippers' record was better, but he's still James Harden, you would be talking about Kawhi as an MVP candidate. He's been one of the best players in the league in terms of how he's been playing. He's been fantastic.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire. Josh Inglis is back with us from Covers. Does a great job covering baseball, hockey, and other sports as well. And he's going to break down this final run here in the National Hockey League. And let's make no mistake about it, it is a run to the playoffs, at least for a few teams. Josh, thanks for coming on the show here on this Friday. All right, so let's start off last night. A pretty resounding win for the Edmonton Oilers. It seems like a chip on their shoulder kind of win here, 8-1. Last night, and certainly the Kings have had their hands full all season. Connor McDavid, he secured his 9th 100-point season last night, and just about everybody got in on the scoring action, didn't they?
Yeah, a second game of a back-to-back after a pretty tough loss the night before. What you're going to see He is the most motivated player in the sport, in the history of the sport, in Connor McDavid right now. He was plus 900 for the league MVP going into that game. Finishes off 8-1. That shortens up to about plus 750. My price on McDavid for MVP right now, about plus 350. Nobody means more to his team, and he's going to drag this team that has shown, has no goaltending, has been pretty awful defensively. They had to bring in Paul Coffey to shore up the coaching on the blue line. He is going to do things to this team that he just seems to do every year. We discount him in spots like this, and I think that plus 750 is maybe a last call, and I think you probably get it down to plus 500. He's going to put the boys on his back. The motivation after the Olympics is just too much for what we saw as a player who's head and shoulders above everybody else in this league.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's just still wanting to get that cup. That's what's left for him at this point. All right, so now yesterday here on the show when we talked a little hockey, Josh, I saw the Panthers were plus 220 to make the playoffs, but they did play a team that's in their way of the playoffs last night in Toronto, and they took care of them. 5-1 the final. Brad Marchand had 2 goals in this one. And so in order to get that three-peat, the first thing they got to do is get back to the playoffs. But if they win games like this against those 5 teams that they are chasing, certainly gives them a better opportunity, doesn't it?
Let's preface this by saying Toronto sucks. Toronto's done. They should sell. They're in a really bad spot. And Toronto was on the second of a back-to-back and looked bad the night before as well. The surprising thing for Florida is they're going for it. They didn't rest anybody. They had the most people on a roster going into the Olympics. And I don't think everybody's healthy, but they look pretty healthy last night. A spot to see is guys like Brad Marchand, who probably could have taken a day off. They didn't. They're still missing Seth Jones on the back end. They're a very interesting point because they're better. They're shorter than $1 to not make the playoffs, which is sustainable. I mean, they're 8 points back. They need a hell of a run. And we saw teams like Columbus go on like a 10-1 run and still 4 points back. There wasn't a lot of ground made up in the East. But if you go look at the odds to go win the Eastern Conference, they're the number 3 betting favorite. So if they just get the chip in a chair theory, if they get in there, they can certainly go on a run. And teams like Carolina are probably terrified that Florida can make the playoffs because their path to the Eastern Conference Finals and maybe Stanley Cup Finals is a lot easier if Florida doesn't make the playoffs.
Plus 190, that's where they are right now, down from plus 220 and 10-1 to win the East, as we just saw Stanley Cup 19-1 as well. All right, Josh, so they are back on the ice, 7 p.m. Eastern, taking on Buffalo. Total of 6.5. Does seem more or less like a pick'em game here tonight, but again, one of those teams that the Panthers need to beat.
100%. And Buffalo's played good teams well. You look back at their previous game versus Carolina, gave them a scare as well. I think the better price here is Buffalo. Wanted to get on Buffalo in the first game back. They were slight dogs versus New Jersey on Wednesday. Didn't pull the trigger there, but they won a great game. Tage Thompson, who, again, probably shouldn't have had a great game, comes away with 2 points. Krebs had the game-winning goal. There was a lot to like about the Buffalo game, and you wonder if Florida kind of got up for that Toronto game. And Toronto's not a tough opponent right now. They're soft. Things change versus Buffalo today. It's going to be a very tight game. Obviously, you get like 25 points for home ice. So if this was on neutral, you're looking at Florida about minus 150. I think Buffalo's the side here. And, I mean, Florida's deep, but Buffalo's just as deep. One of the deepest teams right now, top 9 in all of hockey.
Tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, we've got the Wild taking on the Mammoth, and Minnesota plus 118 on the money line tonight. Josh, I'm curious about this one because it seems to me Minnesota's playing some pretty good hockey just before the break and even after the break, picking up wins. Total of 5.5 tonight, but Utah minus 142 as I see here on FanDuel. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, lots of people like Minnesota right now. Colorado wasn't playing great hockey before the break. I think their point percentage was tied for 22nd with Chicago from January 1st to the break. This is not the same team that we saw in 2025. The Colorado side, Dallas is dealing with injuries, kind of opens the door in a tough Western Conference. You see the Wild, they can win many ways, but right now they're winning high-scoring games. 19-2 to the over in their last 21 games. They hit a miracle over last night. We saw Philip Gustafsson throw up in the net with like 3 minutes left. He comes out. Jesper Wallstedt comes in, gives up a goal. 7 seconds later, it will probably be the rookie Wallstedt in net today versus Utah, who seems like a low-scoring team, a low-event team, but they're 7-3 to the over in their last 10 games. I think both teams can score 3 goals here. And looking at this game, I'm on the over 6.5. I think there's a lot of flat sixes, but I don't want to pay the juice. Go get the over 6.5 plus 110. Eck and Boldy, second line, plus 140 for a point for the pair. Eriksson Ek, minus 125 for a point, might be the best price I've seen out of the break so far. Very aggressive on that play. Boldy with 4 points, Ek with 2 goals. That line looks great. And when you're looking for value, look for the second line on road teams. Home teams get the last change. They usually match up versus the top line, giving easier matchups to that second line. So like goals in that game and on that second line in Minnesota.
Let's wrap it up, Josh, and hit on the Jets taking on the Ducks. Ducks sitting at 65 points, trailing Edmonton and Vegas, I believe. Winnipeg, of course, plus 104 tonight, and should be another tight one here. Total of 6.5 in this game. Who gets it done this evening?
Anaheim was very motivated in their last game versus Edmonton, coming back to win as a pretty plus 115 dog. But that was their coach's 1,000th win. There was a lot of money on the board in that game, a lot of motivation. You come face a Winnipeg team who will finally see Connor Hellebuck back in net. One big thing, mispriced because Josh Morrissey got injured. Winnipeg, we go Logan Stanley plus 75 for a power play point. That number's going to come down. Fair price for that's probably about plus 450.
Josh, great stuff. We'll check you out at Covers and see you again soon. Thanks for coming on NewsWire. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Our prediction market segment is up next. Don't go.
Michigan at a 57% chance right now, followed by Arizona, Duke, and Houston. Here's the interesting caveat, Joe, for Michigan, who's the favorite right now. On February the 8th at 5 a.m., they were trading at 40%. Today, 57%. People like themselves some Michigan here.
Well, Donnie, exactly, because Michigan, it just vaulted themselves to number 1 in the AP poll.
Prediction Markets Edge. Only on SportsGrid.
How much do you think tanking is hurting the NBA right now, too? And what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago, how much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio. Only on SportsGrid.
I have my own account. I don't need to have any. He didn't say any of that. So I'm of the belief that if someone accuses you of something and you don't deny it, there's a reason you didn't deny it. Because you kind of feel like they got me. And yes, I'm not going to tell you I did it, but I did it.
Yeah.
Don't you think so?
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
Yeah, and with the Clippers, Craig, it feels like Kawhi is on an island. We saw him ball out in the All-Star game the other day. Kawhi was very impressive, and he's had a fantastic season. I think when you look at the Clippers, if the Clippers' record was better, but he's still James Harden, you would be talking about Kawhi as an MVP candidate. He's been one of the best players in the league in terms of how he's been playing. He's been fantastic.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Cognizant Classic going on right now in Palm Beach, Florida. Austin Smotherman, as of right now, is the leader at 9 under par. It's time now for us to take a closer look at some golf at the prediction markets. Donnie Rightside, Joe Ranieri, they take a prediction market view at the Cognizant Classic and also an advanced look at the National Football League's most valuable players. So let's check in with the early line and get some opinions on what exactly to predict.
Predictive markets, time to talk about them and have some fun here. And we start in golf, which usually start in the NFL, start in college basketball, the NBA, but we do have the Cognizant Classic going on right now, Joe. And we were looking at this leaderboard to start. I should have said the odds leaderboard. Ooh, looks like it's going to be wide open. And maybe a name that we're not really interested in to start the tournament could do some damage. You see Austin Smotherman, 9 under par, 62 yesterday. We also had a 63 on the course yesterday by Nico Echevarria at -8 here. So if we take a look at the markets right now, trading at 7%. Echevarria trading Smotherman, 14%. Wrighton at 5%, Joe. What happened to some of the bigger names that were in this tournament? Looks like it's going to be a runaway possibly for guys. We're not used to winning tournaments. Where do we invest our money here?
Yeah, flip a coin, Donnie. Smotherman. Yeah. I can promise you this. Smotherman won't be there on Sunday here. Great round, but my goodness. I mean, he was making putts from all over the place here. And you had a little bit of everything. There were guys hitting shots from the inside the water. Like there were guys rolling up the pants there, taking the shoes off. I think a bird was actually hit on one shot. Like they had a little bit of craziness going on yesterday. But the wind is supposed to pick up a little bit here over the weekend, which always makes it a little bit more difficult here. So 9 under is nice, but something tells me today we might have a new leader. Guys that have the experience, like a Keith Mitchell, Taylor Moore, Daniel Berger, guys that have been here and played this course and this tournament. I kind of like those guys at really good prices right now.
But do you like Brooks Koepka here, Joe, at some really nice prices? How did he look yesterday on his rebound back to the PGA?
What is going on? He was supposed to fix the putting issues, and he didn't fix the putting issues there. So, 3 over when a guy that nobody heard of shoots 9 under. Yeah, that's not great. Not at all.
No, certainly not great. MVP we're talking about. Oh, the NBA? No. It never sleeps in the NFL. Talking about next year's MVP, the leader in the clubhouse right now. If you want to invest, it's Josh Allen at 13%. Justin Herbert, 9%. Lamar Jackson, 9%. And there's Drake May, who lost out late in the season because his coach is an idiot. He's listed at 8% here. Caleb Williams, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, the usual suspects at the top of the list, Joe. Is it Josh Allen? Because we know a lot of things can change on a year-to-year basis. Josh Allen is really good. But would you be paying the 13% here for Josh Allen or somebody else below him?
I don't know. Call me crazy. It feels like maybe Joe Burrow is due for a bounce back situation here. There again, I'm going to say a lot of change in Buffalo, and I don't know that it's for the better. We shall see. I mean, Josh Allen is going to be Josh Allen, but at some point we're probably going to get a little fatigue here with Josh Allen. Maybe Joe Burrow, if he can stay on the field. We know he's going to put up points, and he's going to rack up a ton of stats here, provided he stays healthy enough to do so.
Is it too early to look at last year and say, you know what, one of those emerging young teams here with a quarterback that seems to get it now that he has a good head coach in Ben Johnson? We're talking about Caleb Williams here to win the MVP, trading at 7%, Joe. $100 investment pays back $1,429. Trying to go a little bit outside the box on a player that might be able to excel, but certainly Josh Allen's going to put up those numbers. Also, if Josh Allen gets a top flight wide receiver number 1, then we might be looking back in that window. But Justin Herbert getting a lot of respect. Lamar Jackson, again, usual suspects up top of that list. We'll see where it does play out. The NBA, which teams, Joe, you can wager on and invest in Polymarket on who's going to make the playoffs here. Sure, it's easy to say the Pistons, the Thunder, the Nuggets, the Knicks, and the Celtics. But if you slide down, you got some teams like the Charlotte Hornets, Joe, trading at 51% right now. Any looks, and by the way, the volume, $1.9 million in this market right now.
Yeah, no, it's good, but a lot of this it's a race to the bottom, Donnie, right? We already know all the bottom feeders are tanking for draft picks here at this point. But you do have teams like, listen, Miami has got to win some games. They're currently sitting 8th. Atlanta's not too far behind them. And then you've got the Clippers. Who also need to figure it out here, even though they rested everybody last night for some reason, as if they have a cushion there. But they have an opportunity for a play-in spot as well. That's where I would look at on the board. Which one of those teams do you think actually can put enough wins together down the stretch to make it in?
How much do you think tanking is hurting the NBA right now, too, and what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago? How much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Well, I ended up adding this since our show started here, Rohit, but his points prop tonight at 20.5 is the same number from the Iowa State game. That's a bit of a mistake, right? When we consider the gap in opponents here. I think Peterson specifically steps up. He needs to. I think he kind of owes this team a great performance.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
I know that Florida lost at home to Auburn, and it's a real thing that happened. So you can't strike it from the record. But if you did, I think Florida's looked like the best team in college basketball for about 2 months. And I think there are a bunch of results that suggest that.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Great to have Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report in the house as he appears with us each and every week. And today we focus on some of the sportsbook operators here, aside from prediction markets. Okay, I can enjoy that here for a day, a break from prediction markets. All right, so I saw a story, Sam, last week, or maybe it was early this week on the show, about some layoffs with DraftKings. I know we're not going to talk about that, but it does sort of correlate with this next story here that says, at least from some of the reporting that you're doing here, that Flutter stock is down after Q4. And so, we're out of football season here, and I do understand that, but what would be the reasoning behind this? Because everything that I see still seems to indicate that more people are betting sports than ever before.
Yeah, so Flutter, the company that owns FanDuel, anytime there's stock a lot, it's pretty much because of FanDuel. Obviously, FanDuel is one of the biggest sports books, and historically they've been a leader in the space, but they reported their financials yesterday, their fourth quarter earnings, which, like you mentioned, Craig, the stock really took a hit because of it. It's down to its lowest price that it's ever been at since it was listed on the New York Stock Exchange 2 years ago. It's down 15% on the day. And the reason looks to be is because they missed some really key financial targets. Sports betting revenue was up about 35% in the quarter, but it was expected to be up a lot higher. And the reason that Flutter executives are saying is pretty interesting. It's because they said they did a really good job on NFL during the fourth quarter. If you remember, last year at this time, we were talking about how awful sports books did on the NFL. Pretty much customers won at historic rates never seen before. Investors were saying, is this sports betting volatility going to swing the other way? It was a similar case in March Madness. It was a really bad NFL season 2 years ago for the sports books. This NFL season, especially in Q4, with the playoffs and getting colder and more intense games, was actually really good for FanDuel. They held about 9%, which means out of all the money that's bet, all the dollars that come in, they kept about 9% of that and turned it into revenue. So that's normally a good thing. But the real factor that they talked about here was handle. The amount that people bet only was up 3% in the quarter, which if you look at any other quarter before that historically, handle's usually up about 40% year over year, 30%, 25%, but it has slowed down a little bit. So people are still betting more dollars every year, but it's not jumping at the rates we once saw. It's been kind of a growing concern among Wall Street, among people thinking about the outlooks of who's going to win sports betting. How is this going to be a profitable business? Obviously, I have a ton of costs. So it was really interesting to hear Flutter executives talk about kind of suffering from their own success. They said that, people lost so much on the NFL this year that we saw customers more hesitant to keep betting and keep spending that money with us. They also threw their hands up and admitted that they just didn't give promos out the way that they should have. They had a couple of weeks where they held about 30% on the NFL. That's versus the average is usually about 8%, 7%. So that means customers really got hammered on a couple of weeks. And they said they should have given that money back to the customers in promos to keep them betting, keep the handle up. And they just didn't, quite frankly. So going forward, they said they're going to focus on, not doing that, on reacting better, on, making their customers feel like they're going to get their money back more if they lose more. And they also talked about prediction markets. A lot of people have thought, is FanDuel losing business to prediction markets? Is that a reason we're seeing the handle slow down? They said that's actually not the case. They provided some pretty good evidence, I would say, is that, their Missouri launch, happened right around prediction market time. People in Missouri had prediction markets. In December, FanDuel went online, and it was one of their best state launches ever. So they're not quite seeing the fact that they're losing handle to prediction markets yet. They do have plans for their own prediction market to ramp up this year, about $300 million. They're going to invest over the course of this year. And they also talked about, using the pricing technology, the great sports betting technology that makes FanDuel the leading sports betting app, and moving that over to prediction markets and figuring out how to kind of benefit from their sports betting success into a space where, it's more peer-to-peer, there's market makers, it works differently. So FanDuel stock at its lowest it's been pretty much ever, or Flutter stock rather. And interesting that there's kind of saying it's because they got hit, because they did so well in the NFL. That's why the handle is slowing down. But we'll have to see how they, adapt the rest of this year. Obviously, we have the NBA season underway, and in just a couple of weeks, I look at the calendar. You got March Madness coming up, which is pretty much their second biggest event. So I think investors will really be keen to see, did they change their strategy? How is handle moving? But right now, that's the story: is that handle growth is moving in the wrong direction. We'll see if that corrects.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, you're right. The Super Bowl is the Super Bowl for sports betting. But if there is a second Super Bowl, it is March Madness. So I think that's a good point, Sam. We'll check in on Q2. Okay, so now let's get to Arkansas. And we're hearing a lot of news about some of the sports betting operators coming online. You can read about this over at LegalSportsReport.com, by the way. But Sam will now tell us more. Who's in?
Yeah, Arkansas has had a change in their sports betting law, which will allow online sports betting brands that we know to enter the state for the first time. Historically, its state's online sports betting market has been run by its 3 casinos. Bet Saracen is one of the big brands there, but now you have FanDuel and DraftKings just agreed to partnerships with 2 of the casinos in the state, not the one that Bet Saracen operates, so they'll be competing with them, at least theoretically. They were approved for these licenses just this week, and we're not sure exactly when this change is going to happen, when DraftKings and FanDuel are suddenly going to be in the state, but I'm told that it could really happen any day. So if you're in Arkansas, definitely expect FanDuel or DraftKings, the apps you know and love, to be in the state. The Bet Saracen did come out this week and testified against this happening. They said that this kind of changes the market. It unfairly, gives revenue out of state to these companies. They talked a bit about how the model works, where it's still going to be owned by the casinos, but they're pretty much just FanDuel and DraftKings are licensing their technology to them. So for all intents and purposes, you still have FanDuel and DraftKings in the state. The casinos just get over 51% of the revenue. So there's a bit of tensions in the market there. Anytime you have an older casino that's been able to operate kind of a monopoly, they don't want these companies to come in. But it's good news if you're in Arkansas. You have more options to be able to bet. And obviously DraftKings and FanDuel, it's notable, they didn't want to agree to this earlier on, kind of when this law was changed. But they said that, the market dynamics have changed. It's now going to be a good opportunity for us. Of course, comes after prediction markets. So you have to wonder if that's the reason they're getting it now as well. And of course, DraftKings and FanDuel have had their own prediction markets in the state before this. So it goes to show you that I think sports betting is still really the business they want to be conducting if they can, pick one or the other in a state, despite all the fees, despite everything that comes with it. Because obviously they're both spending about, $200-300 million each on prediction markets. Mm-hmm. They still want sports betting as the primary thing here. So, good news for Arkansas, but bad news if you're one of the casinos in the state.
Yeah, it has to be, but that could be the case at a lot of other places like Mississippi, I think, in the future as well. All right, so let's get to Colorado here, Sam, and we'll end with a state that's looking to limit some props and some ads, and I think that they're being progressive about this. These things generally do come with a fight, by the way, with state legislation and also the sports betting operators as well, but given everything that's happened in the sports betting landscape, I don't think we're ever going to see a stoppage of folks trying to ban props or limit props given what's happened in college sports and also, of course, in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, there will definitely be a fight in Colorado if this bill progresses. It would actually ban all types of proposition bets, not just player props. It defines a proposition bet as a bet concerning the performance of an individual athlete participating in an event or combination of events, the outcome of which depends on the occurrence or non-occurrence of a specific act, statistics, performance, event, or circumstance, including any outcome other than the final result or score of an athletic event. So that language basically means you can't bet on the first team to score, the race to 10 points, first basket. I think what we might see is because of the lobbying fight, sportsbooks will say, actually, you need to change this language if you really want to limit prop bets to player props only. It has to not be so broad and interpreted this way. But beyond that, banning prop bets is something that sportsbooks will really fight hard against. Interesting to see a state like Colorado come out and propose something kind of, so vast that the sports betting industry obviously would not want. But we'll keep seeing what happens with this bill. It'll be really interesting to watch.
All right, Sam, great stuff. See you next week. Thanks again.
You too. Thanks, Greg.
Tanking is hurting the NBA right now too, and what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago, how much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
I actually, and I ended up adding this since our show started here, Rohit, but his points prop tonight at 20.5 is the same number from the Iowa State game. That's a bit of a mistake, right? When we consider the gap in opponents here. I think Peterson specifically steps up. He needs to. I think he kind of owes this team a great performance.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
I know that Florida lost at home to Auburn, and it's a real thing that happened. So you can't strike it from the record. But if you did, I think Florida's looked like the best team in college basketball for about 2 months. And I think there are a bunch of results that suggest that.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Our spring training tours continue. Today, we check in on Arizona and the Milwaukee Brewers. And joining us now, play-by-play on Brewers television, he is Jeff Levering, also does work on radio, of course. Joins us now here to break down the prognostication for what could be another good Brewers season, because they don't have bad seasons generally. That's just the truth. Jeff, thanks for coming on the show here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Craig. It's almost like clockwork. Everybody thinks the worst for the Brewers over the course of the season. And what do? They just keep proving people wrong.
Yeah, and I'm not going to try this year. I mean, last year I thought that would have been the season. I don't care who they lose or what they do. I'm still going to think that they're hitting somewhere between 80 and 90 wins. And look, I think everyone again is going to look at the season going in. Why did they make the trades that they just made? Why did Freddie Peralta exit town? But as you just said, it's plug and play. And so whether it's in the infield or whether it's Logan Henderson or somebody else in the pitching staff, and by the way, the manager too, they went through that too. It just seems to be a just factory of drafting, developing, and making sure that the team is well equipped for the regular season. Postseason is almost impossible to predict, but for the regular season, the Brewers are as good as it gets.
It's been a really special run, and this is my 12th year of doing Brewers baseball. And for the last decade, it's been a really good run. The Brewers have won the division 3 straight years, and they ran it back essentially with a lot of the same guys in 2026. So who's to say that they're not going to be able to do it again this year? You have a new third baseman. I think they improved offensively at third base with Luis Rengifo. You got to figure out center field a little bit and figure out what's going on there. Probably a timeshare with Blake Perkins and Garrett Mitchell, maybe Brandon Lockridge out there in center field. But they're going to play good defense. They're going to pitch exceptionally well. And they're set up not just for this year, but for years in the future, too. And their most tenured pitcher is Brandon Woodruff. He's the only guy on the staff that has more than 2 years of pitching experience and of actual major league service time. And all of their guys are going to be controllable until the year 2030. So not just this year, but a lot of good years coming for the Brewers on the pitching side of things.
Yeah, definitely. We can continue with that conversation. I think that's fair. I mentioned Henderson. Obviously, everybody very familiar with Jacob Mizorowski at this point. And I think when you develop the pitching like the Brewers have, it enables you to make some changes in the starting rotation. And so if Woodruff is healthy, I mean, look, he's still a good pitcher, but it's more to me of a ceremonial opening day, giving him the number 1 start. But then you have Priester, Mizorowski, Chad Patrick. And then in the trade, they got Kyle Harrison, who's now been moved around the league a few times too. But I fully expect, if healthy, this is going to be a really good rotation again.
Yeah, and a lot of lefties in that rotation too. And a guy that they got back from the Mets, and Brandon Sproat, who's going to make his spring training debut today for the Brewers. I think that he might be the best of the bunch. I mean, he's throwing 96-mile-an-hour cutters on the backfields these days. So I think that the Brewers are really poised to make some noise. And I know the Cubs made moves, and Alex Bregman makes them a better team offensively at third base. But their pitching is a little thin. I think for the Brewers, their pitching is as deep as anybody's. Do they have the household names as the rest of the guys in the division? I think the Reds are a better team in the Central. The Cubs are a good team. Of course, the Pirates spent some money on their offense this year, which they needed to do. But I still think that the Brewers have developed these guys to such a level, and so much credit goes to Chris Hook and Jim Henderson and the rest of the pitching group for bringing these guys along. And the way that they have, I don't want to say massaged these kids moving forward, but the fact that they get to the big leagues and sometimes they start in the bullpen to limit their innings, to limit their exposure, and to have them have a taste of success. I think that these guys, the Brewers organization, has done such a good job of developing these pitchers. They did it with Corbin Burns before. They did it with Freddie Peralta. They did it with Brandon Woodruff back in 17 and 18. Having these guys get a taste of success and then move them into the starting rotation has been such a key for this organization.
Yeah, it really has. And, they talk about, pitching factories, pitching labs, development. I mean, simply put, there's no organization in baseball, just got to call it what it is, that could lose the kind of pitchers that the Brewers have lost now with Peralta and Burns, and then the guys in the bullpen with Hader and Devin Williams, and still compete at this level speaks to that. And the manager was extended for good reason too, so that does add up as well. So if there are questions, it's going to be the offense of the Brewers. I mean, that's just, we know who Jackson Chourio is, and they certainly have capable players on offense. But as you mentioned, some battles going on in the other parts of the outfield. I did hear Christian Yelich say for the first time in a while he's coming into a spring training feeling fully healthy. So I wonder what that season could look like if that is indeed the case. And he sort of is the key here, because if you get 140 from him, we know the back stuff, creeps in and misses 10, 12 here. But if you get 130, 140 from this guy, then you're talking about an offense that can fight with anybody in the league. It's just been a question, though, through the years, just to be frank.
Yeah, and for Yelich, he's battled a back issue. He fouled the ball off his kneecap a couple of years ago in Miami. That was 2019, which ruined a potential MVP season, or a second MVP in consecutive years. Still probably could have won it anyway. But the younger kids, the Bryce Terang, who hit 18 home runs last year, he hit 2 homers the other day in a spring training game. Sal Frelick is in his 3rd full season. Jackson Chourio is moving into his 3rd full season as a 21-year-old. He'll be 22 in early March. I mean, the fact that these guys are doing what they're doing at such a young age, though, that is the core. That is what this team is all about. And you kind of plug guys in from there. Again, center field is going to be a big question. I think third base is a question. But everywhere else on the diamond, pretty solidified from a year ago. And it was a very productive offense. Now, are they going to hit a ton of home runs? No, they're not going to hit a ton of home runs. But they're going to steal bases. They're going to hit behind runners. And they're going to play the game the way Pat Murphy likes to, and that's grind you out.
Yeah, and he does that well. So where's the bullpen stand, you think, at this point? Another spot where they seem to always, factor guys in and find guys to pitch high leverage.
I think the bullpen is as deep as it's been in a number of years. I think with Abner Uribe and Trevor McGill at the back end of the bullpen, they're in really good shape. Jared Koenig, they're going to limit those guys' innings here in spring so that they can go full load during the regular season. But whoever doesn't make the rotation is going to end up in the bullpen. And we saw what the Brewers did with Aaron Ashby in the pen. Right. He could start, he could open, he could be in the pen. There are a lot of weapons at the back end of that bullpen for the Brewers.
Yeah. Definitely so, Jeff, and we will not count them. I will not count them out. Not that I counted them out last year. I just didn't think they could win that many games. I'm not doing that this year. I'll pick the Brewers to win the division again. Thanks again, Jeff, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Craig. Have a good one. See you soon.
All right, we'll be right back. Don't go away.
Michigan at a 57% chance right now, followed by Arizona, Duke, and Houston. Here's the interesting caveat, Joe, for Michigan, who's the favorite right now. On February the 8th at 5 a.m., they were trading at 40%. Today, 57%. People like themselves some Michigan here.
Well, Donnie, exactly, because Michigan, it just vaulted themselves to number 1 in the AP poll.
Prediction Markets Edge. Only on SportsGrid.
How much do you think tanking is hurting the NBA right now, too? And what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago, how much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio. Only on SportsGrid.
I have my own account. I don't need to have any. He didn't say any of that. So I'm of the belief that if someone accuses you of something and you don't deny it, there's a reason you didn't deny it. Because you kind of feel like they got me. And yes, I'm not going to tell you I did it, but I did it. Yeah. Don't you think so?
The Craig Carden Show. Only on SportsGrid.
Yeah, and with the Clippers, Craig, it feels like Kawhi is on an island. We saw him ball out in the All-Star game the other day. Kawhi was very impressive, and he's had a fantastic season. I think when you look at the Clippers, if the Clippers' record was better, but he's still a James Harden, you would be talking about Kawhi as an MVP candidate. He's been one of the best players in the league in terms of how he's been playing. He's been fantastic.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. ESPN reports that Connor Griffin, 19-year-old prospect for the Pittsburgh Pirates, could soon be offered a contract extension without even playing a big league game. Stay tuned to see if that one actually comes to fruition. Now let's check in with Brady Cannon. He checks back in with the G2E conference, sitting down with Ramiro Atucha, very heavily involved In the iGaming industry, also Ramiro, one of those executives in Buenos Aires in Latin America, simply pushing forward iGaming and the industry as well. Take a listen to the interview.
It is inside G2E, the Global Gaming Expo, presented by the AGA, the American Gaming Association, right here on SportsGrid. I'm Brady Cannon, and we are now joined by Ramiro Atucha. He is the president of the Ramiro Atucha Advisory Company. It's a pleasure having you on board here, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. And off air, I was just saying, okay, so what do you do exactly? And it's a wonderful background, a very interesting background. You've worked all over the world in, basically the regulation gaming space, as far as I understand. And now, because of that experience, with all this movement into Latin America, you're a great person to consult on this type of thing, and thus the advent of the Ramiro Atucha Advisory Company.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for having me here. It's a pleasure. And yes, I've been 20 years in the gambling industry. Initially, the first years on the regulated European and American market through my first company, Leander Games. And the second phase since 2020 with my second company, Vibra Gaming, with a regulated Latin American market. And I believe I understand pretty well the standards, the requirements of the American public, European regulated companies, and what their concerns are when coming into Latin America. It's challenging. Every time you go to a new place, to a new country, identifying the right people, understanding, where to go, how to go, is always a concern. And I've been helping a few companies doing that, in a safe way and with the right steps, I would say.
Talk to me, Ramiro, and the audience, obviously, about regulation. That sounds to me like the rules, right? The rules, the laws. Dig us deeper into regulation and setting up regulation in a country or a jurisdiction. What does all that entail?
Well, first is identifying the markets where the operator wants to get established or where the supplier wants to grow based on their offering, right? Once that's identified, also seeing what the appetite is. There are different levels of regulations. Some companies would consider Mexico regulated. Some would consider it not regulated enough.
Okay.
Something similar happened with Brazil a few years ago. So it really depends on that appetite and depending on that, how to proceed into that market. Regulation in Latin America is evolving, so it's also a matter of understanding what are the odds of that. For example, Brazil recently regulated. Now it's talking about new changes about that regulation. So navigating that, considering what's going to happen next, is a key element to make a decision there.
In Europe, is it pretty much complete as far as regulation versus the United States? It seems like it's incomplete because we don't have states where everything is legal just yet.
Correct. The U.S. is similar. I'm originally from Argentina, right? Argentina is similar to the U.S. in terms of it being state by state.
Okay.
Right? U.S., same thing. State by state, still some states remaining to be regulated, a lot of room for growth, also a lot of consolidation. Something similar is happening to Argentina. The rest of the markets, Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, is more country-wise, which is a much interesting approach, I would say.
And you're saying that the wave is kind of now getting into South America and Latin America. Is that correct?
Correct. I think that there's an element of natural growth. I think we need to look for a combination here. The Latin American operators, they understand the players, they understand the player base, what the players like, but Latin American operators do not have the experience that long-standing American or especially European, when it comes online, have with the operation of online casinos or online sportsbook, etc. So there needs to be a combination there. Of course, there's a bit of over-regulation in Europe, also in the US. So you have lots of operators looking for other places to grow where it's not illegal,
that makes sense.
But
where it might be
grow.
easier to do business.
Exactly.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It is Ramiro Atucha. Check out his advisory company. Again, strategic advisor for the Ramiro Atucha Advisory Company. Thank you very much for joining us again here on SportsGrid.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Michigan at a 57% chance right now, followed by Arizona, Duke, and Houston. Here's the interesting caveat, Joe, for Michigan, who's the favorite right now. On February the 8th at 5 a.m., they were trading at 40%. Today, 57%. People like themselves some Michigan here.
Well, Donnie, exactly, because Michigan, it just vaulted themselves to number one in the AP poll.
Prediction Markets Edge. Only on SportsGrid.
How much do you think tanking is hurting the NBA right now, too? And what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago, how much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio. Only on SportsGrid.
I have my own account. I don't need to have any. He didn't say any of that. So I'm of the belief that if someone accuses you of something and you don't deny it, there's a reason you didn't deny it. Because you kind of feel like they got me. And yes, I'm not going to tell you I did it, but I did it. Yeah. Don't you think so?
The Craig Carden Show. Only on SportsGrid.
Yeah, and with the Clippers, Craig, it feels like Kawhi is on an island. We saw him ball out in the All-Star game the other day. Kawhi was very impressive, and he's had a fantastic season. I think when you look at the Clippers, if the Clippers' record was better, but he's still a James Harden, you would be talking about Kawhi as an MVP candidate. He's been one of the best players in the league in terms of how he's been playing. He's been fantastic.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Great to catch up with Adam Kaufman. We'll discuss some NBA news and notes, get to some recaps, and preview some games on the slate this weekend as well. Adam, great to have you back here on NewsWire and getting ready for the big weekend in the NBA. So let's get started. Do some recap first. Kevin Durant, the ageless wonder, 40 points last night in the Rockets win over the Magic, 113-108. Durant was 14 of 28 from the field. He now moves into the top 6 scorers of all time. Durant obviously going to eventually move ahead of Michael Jordan as well. We'll get to that in a minute here, but it just shows you on his track to the Hall of Fame, despite having a career that's moved around quite a bit. You used to not see that in the NBA, but this guy's played on a million different teams. Still doesn't take away from how great this guy is, even at this advanced age.
No, the jumping from team to team is the norm now. I mean, what you don't see anymore is what we used to see, which is guys spending their entire careers with one team, maybe 2 teams. No, I mean, the long gone are the days, obviously, of OKC, or even before that, very briefly, Seattle, Kevin Durant. He went ring chasing, which, by the way, I will never fault a guy for, to Golden State, took advantage of a very weird salary time in the NBA under a previous collective bargaining agreement, and then continues to hop around, as we know, from team to team, most recently Brooklyn, now obviously Houston. And it looks like none of the burner drama of All-Star Weekend has followed him, because, like you said, it hasn't blown up the team. Yeah. He goes for 40 points in this one, 26 in the second half, helps to wipe out a 19-point deficit there against a far inferior Magic team. And I say that as someone that is not the biggest Houston Rockets fan in the world, but the Magic, they're just so banged up. There was, I look at games like this, and sure, any given day, anything can happen. But generally speaking, 9 times out of 10, Orlando should not be able to compete with Houston. So the Rockets go out, take care of business. They get Reed Shepherd going for 20-plus off the bench as well. It was a nice win for Houston. So make it 3 in a row, and a team that is trying to stay very relevant there at the top of the Western Conference.
Yeah, meanwhile, as far as the top 6 scorers in NBA history, it's interesting that Durant is 6th. Michael Jordan is 5th. There's a couple of things in play here. Number one, Durant will move ahead of Jordan. We know that. And the other factor is that people wonder, why is Michael Jordan 5? People forget he took a year off and a half to play baseball. And so he probably would have been ahead of Kobe Bryant, maybe even Karl Malone, had he played Then again, he did come back and play for Washington at the end too. I attended
Yeah, I
games
mean,
that
he
went to.
retired multiple times. You know, you didn't get the LeBron career, right, where he just goes until the bitter end, until there's theoretically nothing left. Not to say LeBron's at that stage; he could keep going another couple more years if he wants to, and who knows, maybe he will. But yeah, Michael Jordan, a la, I mean, it's not the same thing as like Barry Sanders retiring at 29 or whatever he was.
Sure.
But no question, Michael Jordan walked away at multiple points in his career when there was still something left in the tank. So, you know, for all of this I think is kind of where you're going a little bit, you know, for all the like GOAT conversations, and most people will look at it and say, okay, is it Michael Jordan? Is it LeBron James? Other people want to put maybe some other guys in there, you know, just in the discourse, even though to me they really don't belong. It comes down to a couple. You can't look at Jordan's career and start with volume statistics, because guys with the longevity, you know, Kareem, LeBron, obviously Durant soon enough, are going to pass him. And that doesn't ultimately define Jordan's career. A large part of the career is told by the story of all those rings.
I definitely have memories of him being on Washington too, coming here to Miami and playing and playing on the Heat, and me interviewing him.
Look, man,
after the game.
I'm old enough to remember the I'm back facts and coming back and wearing the number 45 and all these things. So I get it.
Me too. Okay, so speaking of LeBron, the Lakers lose last night to the Suns. Wow, 113 to 110. They were big favorites in this one, and don't win, don't cover. Luka, as expected, bounced back after that strange ending to the previous game. He had 41 points, but as of right now, the Lakers are sort of in that purgatory of being in the West, being pretty good, but probably not good enough, right?
Definitely not good enough. Again, it's Oklahoma City, it's Denver, it's San Antonio. You could put Houston in there if you want to. Some people would put Minnesota in there just off of back-to-back, you know, stretches or paths to the Western Conference Finals led there by Anthony Edwards. LeBron and this Lakers team, and it's not even LeBron's team anymore. I realize he's still kind of figurehead, face of it, that type of thing. It's Luka's team, and it has been since the day he arrived. Just acknowledging where these guys are in their careers. And hell, don't dismiss Austin Reeves and what he has done when he has had to be the guy when both of those two have missed time due to injury. But yeah, this was just kind of one of those games where a couple of, at least in the standings, comparable teams. Now, they are not comparable really when you look at the way they're constructed right now. The Lakers probably doing about what they were supposed to do. The Suns are vastly overachieving this year, and doing so even right now with this victory, despite their slump of late, doing so without their top two leading scorers. There's no Devin Booker, there's no Dylan Brooks, as we know, got rid of Kevin Durant in the offseason. So having to lean on guys like Grayson Allen and Jalen Green and, you know, Colin Gillespie and guys like that, Mark Williams, to win games like this. And to their credit, they did. And Luka went off, you know, flirted with a triple-double, had 41 points, but he can't do it alone. You can't get 14 points out of LeBron and similar number out of Reeves. Like you need 2 out of the 3 to show up any given day, because there's just no depth whatsoever on this roster. The fact that Rob Pelinka just continues to fool this many people on a, you know, daily basis for years now in terms of roster building is remarkable.
LeBron always has a guy next to him, but that's about it. They never have 3, 4, 5 guys. It's always been the second piece, but never the third. Spurs, meanwhile, have been one of these stories in the NBA this season. Certainly one of 3 or 4 teams that have a shot, you would think, to win the title here. They've won 11 straight games now, Adam, and they've put themselves just vastly ahead of where Houston was in terms of Western Conference odds. Wemby's certainly having an MVP-type season. I don't think he's going to win, but he's having an MVP-type season. We may want to bet him next year, by the way, to win MVP with the way that he is playing. So, and the other thing that they have going for them, too, is they know how to beat Oklahoma City, right? So we're in that stage of the season, Adam. There's some jockeying going on. But you know in the NBA, when you hit March, it's not just tanking season. It's like rest season for a lot of these guys, too.
Yeah, load management is a thing. There's no doubt about it. And there are a lot of guys, and we'll see about Wemby, that are going to fail to qualify for postseason awards because they don't reach the new 65-game requirement, that benchmark that was instituted in the last couple of years. Now, I did bet the Spurs to win the championship only a couple of days ago at roughly 10-1 because it just felt like a good number. Now, obviously, I've long missed the best of the number. Get that. But it felt like, still a reasonable number to jump in for a team that, again, as you said, scorching hot, 11 straight wins, has trimmed its deficit to now just a game and a half in that top-heavy Western Conference. And the Thunder, despite all the winning, they don't look right because they can't get their guys on the floor. Now, SGA, and I know we'll talk about this in the next segment, is coming back tonight, and that's huge. He's missed 9 straight games,
Right.
but there's still no Jalen Williams. They're all kinds of banged up. Guys like Holmgren, others have been in and out of the lineup. They played their last game without their top 6 scorers effectively because Isaiah Joe even got hurt at halftime. So it is a Thunder team that is ripe to be taken advantage of, and a Spurs team that at every opportunity head-to-head has capitalized. So come a playoff series, a 7-gamer, you can't depend on both teams being fully healthy for sure. And hopefully Wemby is available. Hopefully SGA is available. You want your
Right.
key guys to be out there, but you can't assume either team is going to be at full strength. And so this is a Spurs team that is young, it's overachieving, but it's also incredibly dangerous and has to be taken very seriously. And, I'm not going to put a lot of credence in a win over the Nets. The Celtics should shellac them tonight as well. The Nets suck. They're actively tanking, but this Spurs team is really good.
Yeah, and they're, by the way, plus 550 to win the West. You mentioned 10-1 to win it all. Denver and OKC are the only other teams that have shorter odds to win the Western Conference. Houston's now fallen back a little bit at 14-1. Did you take the Spurs to win the West also, or are you just stuck with the championship?
No, I just did the championship. I sprinkled some bets. The Spurs to win the championship, the Pistons to win the championship. I have the Celtics to win the East, and those are some of the main futures that I'm chasing right now in the NBA.
All right, we'll chase down some games tonight in the NBA when we return next. You're watching NewsWire on SportsGrid. Don't go away.
How much do you think tanking is hurting the NBA right now, too? And what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago, how much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Well, I ended up adding this since our show started here, Rohit, but his points prop tonight at 20.5 is the same number from the Iowa State game. That's a bit of a mistake, right? When we consider the gap in opponents here. I think Peterson specifically steps up. He needs to. I think he kind of owes this team a great performance.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
I know that Florida lost at home to Auburn, and it's a real thing that happened. So you can't strike it from the record. But if you did, I think Florida's looked like the best team in college basketball for about 2 months. And I think there are a bunch of results that suggest that.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Great to have Adam Kaufman back in the house here on NewsWire to break down some of the games in the NBA tonight. And wouldn't you know, the favorite to win the MVP is back just in time to cash that check at the end of the season. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is back. He really can't afford to miss many more. I don't think he would qualify. No. As Adam said, you got to play 65 games in the NBA. So that makes the Thunder a whopping 8.5-point favorites tonight over the Nuggets, 233.5. You know, the thing with me at the Thunder is they keep winning. And it's so impressive that they're winning without SGA. I know Jalen Williams came back, but they're really not winning big. Like, a lot of these games are close. So is that in store tonight against Denver?
Well, and plays into, as we were just talking about, the fact that the Spurs, with their 11-game winning streak, has trimmed this deficit in the West to just a game and a half. You know, to OKC's credit, especially as shorthanded as it is, 5-4 without SGA during that absence due to the abdominal strain, but he is back, and that's huge. There's still no Jalen Williams. You got one of the Jalen Williamses, the one with the Y, but no Jalen Williams in terms of your second all-star there, and that does hurt. AJ Mitchell, of course, a key contributor off the bench, is also unavailable in this one. So this is a team that's a little shorthanded. Thing is, so are the Nuggets. Yes, you have the best player in the world, in my mind, Nikola Jokic, but you don't have Aaron Gordon. Jamal Murray is obviously questionable, so we'll see if he winds up playing here in this one. And the Nuggets, if you want to lean into a close game, and I would be in that camp. And I know OKC beat Denver earlier this month by 10 points. Granted, the rosters looked a little bit different a few weeks ago at this point, given all of these injuries that we're talking about. But I was just reading this one earlier. The Nuggets 7-1 against the spread as dogs of 6+ points, winning their last 5 outright. So I like Denver to hang around in this one, keep it close, take advantage of whatever rust may exist early on around SGA. And also, it's a team that, as superb as OKC is in general, anywhere. I mean, you play the game on Mars, Oklahoma City would still do well. But at home, 24-6, the Nuggets are 21-11 on the road. So it's not a team that is going to be intimidated in any way going on the road into this environment. And don't forget, this is also a team that pushed the eventual champion Thunder to 7 games in their playoff series last year. So we keep talking about how the Spurs have OKC's number this year, and that's true. But Denver is a team that is not exactly going to cower in this matchup.
All right, to win the NBA's MVP, SGA moved from -230 on FanDuel to -250. And if he plays tonight and does well, I think this is going to jump a little more. Jokic is 4-1. Cade Cunningham is +850. It's a two-man race, let's be honest. But Cade Cunningham has had a fantastic season for Detroit. Don't want to discount him as well. Okay, so Cleveland, life without James Harden for now. Getting 6.5 tonight in a matchup against Detroit, which they'll feel a lot better about if Harden plays for them sometime later this month, or I'm sorry, later next month in March or in April. Total 227.5. Detroit is just simply playing like one of the best teams in the NBA. I'm not really interested in fading them, but I certainly understand that Cleveland has played like that as well. I just don't know to quantify the Harden factor, what the line would be, I guess, if he was in this game.
Pistons have won 9 of 11. The Cavaliers have lost 2 of 3 since a 7-game winning streak. So to your point, still obviously the team that has played well over its last 10, but the injuries can't be ignored. There's no Isaiah Stewart, no beef stew because of the suspension he's dealing with. But on the other side, you're talking about big guns, obviously. It's not Cade Cunningham quality. So, in terms of James Harden, like you said, is questionable. We already know Donovan Mitchell is not going to play in this game. And then on top of that, Max Strus is out. Dean Wade looks like he's not going to play. Dennis Schroeder has been upgraded to probable from questionable. So that is a guy that, at least in terms of a role player, can contribute, certainly can blow up for 2025 on any given day. And maybe he does that without some of the star power there for Cleveland. But, I just consider the fact that these teams, when playing against higher quality competition, the Pistons this year against teams that are at least 500 have a 19-7 record. The Cavaliers, conversely, are below 500 against teams that are 500 or better. And so, they don't exactly, again, raise their game to what's around them. I like the Pistons to win this one. I like them to cover. I just think, clearly they're the better team. There's no mystery there. But also the healthier team, the team that should take advantage in this spot.
Same thing could be said tonight for this matchup between the Bucks and Knicks. The Bucks, certainly playing toward the future now at this point, although I think they have said that Giannis is supposed to come back. I don't know if I buy that, though. Knicks are 8.5-point favorites, total 219.5. It's just a matter of making a case here for Milwaukee in some way, if you can. I understand this is a big line here, but generally the Knicks have done very well in these spots, Adam. They've been beating up on all the bad teams. It's just they can't beat the good teams this season.
Look, the Bucks are terrible, but it's wild what they're doing. They've won 5 out of 6. Like you said, Giannis is out, and who knows if we'll see him again. I'm inclined to believe we will, but maybe if the season gets away, we don't. And that is still what's in jeopardy. This team is still outside looking in when it comes to even the play-in tournament, let alone a playoff spot. And they're just, at least of late, winning on balance. We're talking about Rollins and Kuzma and Turner and God, I mean, Porter Jr., Green, Portis off the bench. It's again just a real collection of, okay, this guy can get you 12, this guy can get you 15, this guy might pop off for 20, but there's no 40-point dominant Giannis-like performance that you can rely upon night to night. That being said, yes, the Knicks are the better team. They're healthier. There's nobody out of consequence in this game for New York. And so this should be one of those situations where the Knicks roll, especially considering you don't need them to lay double figures.
You mentioned Brooklyn, and that probably made people tune out of the show, honestly. But the good thing is, Adam, we only got 2 minutes left with you. Celtics, Nets, Boston minus 17.5, total 207.5. They don't need Tatum for this one. I know that. No. But do they cover the spread? Do they cover this big line? I hate these big lines.
I don't like the big line either, and it's not like the Celtics can't cover it, obviously, but the Nets have played them close to their credit. They beat them once earlier this year, took them to double overtime in a second game as well. Celtics clearly are the better team, the healthier team, even without Tatum. Jaylen Brown's out there. They could win this game by 30, 40 points, and who would even blink at that? But I still don't want to lay 17.5. And to that point, Evan Abrams over at Action Network this tweet earlier today, Celtics are the biggest favorites in a game with a total this low, 207.5, in 9 years in the NBA. So for the Celtics to lay, to win by 18, 20 plus points, and for this game to still, theoretically come in at 205 or maybe a little bit lower than that, you're talking about a real shellacking. And maybe that's in store because these Nets have lost 6 in a row and, again, actively tanking.
Have a great weekend, Adam. Thanks again.
You too.
Tanking is hurting the NBA right now too, and what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago, how much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
I ended up adding this since our show started here, Rohit, but his points prop tonight at 20.5 is the same number from the Iowa State game. That's a bit of a mistake, right? When we consider the gap in opponents here. I think Peterson specifically steps up. He needs to. I think he kind of owes this team a great performance.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
I know that Florida lost at home to Auburn, and it's a real thing that happened. So you can't strike it from the record. But if you did, I think Florida's looked like the best team in college basketball for about 2 months. And I think there are a bunch of results that suggest that.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. As a quick reminder, coming up later today here on the grid, you can catch me and George Kurtz with an episode of Fantasy Sports Today. That is 3 p.m. Eastern as you get ready for your fantasy drafts. I know it's February still, but guess what? The month of March is just hours away, and that's really when draft season begins, so make sure you catch that show as well. All right, as we wrap up the show, let's get into it. A repeat of an old Randy Johnson feat that happened on a baseball field happened on the golf course. Also, we will get into Max Scherzer, how he may have ended up back in Toronto, and a heartwarming story from Anthony Edwards of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Time now for us to wrap up the week with some last licks. Boy, when I saw this yesterday, only one thing came to mind. Ryan Gerard, who is a golfer on the PGA Tour playing here in South Florida, in my neck of the woods at the Cognizant Classic, hit the ball, he hit it hard, and he ended up hitting a bird. That's right, on the golf course. It happened, folks, and it happens every once in a blue moon. A bird flew by, and the ball just smashed the bird. Now, everyone is referring to the Randy Johnson spring training game in Arizona where he threw that pitch and the bird just exploded. But I have some good news here. Our very own Smiley Kaufman tells us that the bird did survive the smash. I was thinking the worst until I saw this late yesterday. But, look, we can now make fun of it and we can kid around because no bird was harmed in the video. Now, if you haven't seen it, you got to just we don't have the rights to show you this and get a Cognizant Classic PGA Tour. But you can go check it out online, do your old Google, YouTube search, and you can find this. Good news, bird is alive. Ryan Gerard can continue his round at the Cognizant today with a clear mind. Okay, Max Scherzer, a big contributor to the Toronto Blue Jays last season. We thought maybe last year was the end of the line for Scherzer. They did not win the World Series, and let's be honest, he was fading at the end of the season. Scherzer, like Justin Verlander, has decided to dial it back one more season. I would think that this is the end for Scherzer, but what do I know? But the way that he ended up back in Toronto is very peculiar because he did wait very long to sign. But maybe it was his daughter that helped out his cause? That's right. His daughter ended up writing a hand letter to the Toronto Blue Jays front office and asking them if his dad could pitch one more season in Toronto. And it seems to have worked out. Scherzer, who is now reported to Dunedin, Florida, and will be in spring training with the team, is expected to be back on the mound pretty soon, maybe 2-3 weeks. And maybe even get a shot to be with the team first time through the rotation. He'll be, of course, at the back end, 4 or 5. Just goes to show you that kids can certainly help your cause and help their parents. Maybe Max Scherzer's daughter, Brooke, ended up getting him a contract with the Toronto Blue Jays. How about that? Okay, we end the story with a really nice one here. Last year, Anthony Edwards of the Minnesota Timberwolves, he met a young Timberwolves fan by the name of Luca, who unfortunately had cancer. Luca gave Edwards a wristband, and Edwards at the time, in a video that was posted online when he received the wristband, I believe it was orange, said, "I will wear this wristband for the rest of my career." And he still, Anthony Edwards on his left hand, you can see the video, still wears it in every game that he plays right now. In fact, yesterday, even the best news of all, Luca was declared cancer-free. So what a great way to end the show today, with a nice story both on and off the field or off the court. Good job by Anthony Edwards, and very happy for Luca and his family. That'll do it for our show here today and our week of shows here today. Thanks again to all of our great guests here on the program, including Josh Inglis, Sam McQuillan, Jeff Levering, and Adam Kaufman for coming on the show as well and talking sports with us and breaking down everything happening with us as well. As a reminder, we will be back here on the air Monday with our next edition of NewsWire, but you can also download the SportsGrid app just by taking out your phone and scanning that QR code that's right there. It's available for iOS and Android, and with March Madness and the NCAA tournament less than a month away, you could track your bets on the app as well. So make sure you download that now, and you can stream our shows 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. All right, that'll do it for the week of shows. Great week of shows, too, by the way. Thanks again very much to our director, Luke, and for my producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. As a reminder, once again, 3 p.m. Eastern, catch me and George Kurtz on Fantasy Sports Today. Another position and team preview, as you get ready for your fantasy baseball drafts. And then we'll be back Monday with the month of March, one of the best months of the year in all of sports. March Madness, opening day, closer and closer to the NFL draft. Thanks so much for tuning into our week of shows. I'll see you back here Monday for our next edition of NewsWire.